In this episode of The Great American Cruise-In, I found a 1940 Ford Opera Coupe that combines old-school style with modern tech in a classic resto-mod driver's car. I'm Scott Hutteman, and I'm fascinated with classic cars. That's why I travel from car shows to cruise-ins to meet owners and learn about their passion for classic cars and the stories behind their amazing restorations. So join me as I go deep into this car show at Fishhawk Ranch in Riverview, Florida, to learn more about this incredible resto-mod Ford Opera Coupe. It's not every day that you get to see a vintage car with all the classic lines of the era, only to discover that the car has keyless entry and no door handles. Built on a philosophy that combines classic restoration with modern technology, this Ford Opera Coupe demonstrates an excellent example of a classic brought back to life and modernized for everyday driving. Owner and builder Chris Robinson was gracious enough to show me the intricate details that make this Ford Coupe one of the most beautiful examples of a modernized classic car. Chris, tell me what you brought here. This is definitely an amazing car. It's absolutely beautiful.
It's a 1940 Ford Opera Coupe. I bought it as a shell. All I got was sheet metal. So I didn't destroy a car because I've had original cars all my life. And then I proceeded to spend a lot of money. It's got a 1996 Mustang crate motor in it with a C4 transmission and a 3.0 rear end because it's made for driving, not for drag racing. Factory air, cruise control, power steering, power brakes. It's got a DVD player, surround sound. The seats are custom seats from a company out of Elkhart, Indiana called Wise Guys. A friend of mine, Lynn Peterson from Minnesota, he was a custom car builder, and he did the body and paint for me. You can't do that in the backyard. You need a professional to do that.
Okay, tell me your inspiration for buying this car. Why did you choose this one?
Oh, I probably built a dozen models when I was a kid, and I always wanted one. I had the option to buy one back in 1971 in Cocoa Beach for $1,200, and I was in the the Air Force. Didn't have much money, and I asked my dad for $1,000, and he said, I'm not going to give you money to buy an old piece of junk. And that car today is probably worth $40,000, $50,000. But
so how did you acquire it? How did you find this car?
Well, a couple of friends of mine in Minneapolis were building cars, and they heard of this guy out in Litchfield, Minnesota. And so we took a ride out there. He had a few cars. This one I liked because I wouldn't be cutting up an original car. Sheet metal was pretty good, no major rust or anything on it, and it just went from there. We took all the chrome off it, all the trim, all the door handles, all the original hinges, put hidden hinges on it. Like I said, keyless entry.
Well, there is definitely a nice line to this car. From front to back, it just has that Art Deco kind of period look to it, so it really is smooth. And that's one of the things you notice about this car compared to many other cars that are like this, is just how smooth these lines are. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, take a look. There's nothing on the outside of the car. The only chrome is on the bezels of the taillights and the headlights. When the bodywork was being done, they spot welded the doors in place. So when they hand sanded the car, and you shut the door and you look down the side, you can't see anything. And that's when you get out your checkbook.
Well, let's talk about that interior, because it is absolutely in pristine shape. And you had mentioned that you got this car and it had nothing on the inside. So let's talk about anything special to the interior that we've not covered already.
Well, like I said, all I got was the sheet metal, so I wound up with I did get the original dash, put a custom Dakota digital instrument panel in it, have the original glove box that most people welded up and smoothed over, and then I built an under part of the dashboard so I could put my air conditioning vents in, hide part of my air conditioner, my vintage air, and put all my custom switches. I was a aircraft electrician for Northwest Airlines, so I had all these things in my brain about how we worked on airplanes, so I did a lot of that.
Let's talk about what makes this car go. How have you modified, restored this car compared compared to what you got?
Okay, it has a what we call a smooth, clean firewall. There's no wires going through the firewall that you can see. The only thing you can see is the steering column and the air conditioner lines and the heater lines. So all the wiring comes down and goes under the car and back up in the car. It's got all the additions are mainly from Ford Motorsport, all the valve covers and things like that. It's got an Edelbrock 650 carburetor.
What size engine do you have?
It's actually a 302 or a 5-liter. The way it is roughly, it's only about 300 horsepower. You know, I've got friends that have cars that have 500 and 600 horsepower, but I don't like to buy tires every year.
Yeah, and when you have that kind of power, it does tend to wear out on the tires.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about transmission, back end, brakes. What have you done with this car?
Well, it's got a Heights cross member, and because I was building it to drive, and we went all over the country with this thing, I have OEM upper and lowers from a Mustang 2 front end, and the ball joints and everything, and the rack and pinion steering. So if I need parts, I go to Napa or Advanced Auto Parts. It's got a C4 transmission that was rebuilt, and like I said, it's got the Ford 3.0 rear end for good fuel mileage.
So it sounds like you've restored and rebuilt this car in such a way that you can use spec parts off the shelf. Is that kind of a good piece of advice for anybody that wants to get in the game and restore a car?
And it depends on what you want to do with your vehicle. If you want to just go to a show and have the fancy brakes and everything showing, fine, you can do that. But if you want to get out and drive it and not have to spend days cleaning your car after you drive it, you'll notice that I have behind my wheels, I have dust covers. So as to minimize the amount of time I have to do to polish those wheels, it keeps the brake dust off them.
That's fantastic. Let's look at the numbers of this car to kind of put this all in perspective. What did you acquire the car for? And what do you think you've put into the car? And what do you think its value is on the market today?
Well, I know exactly what I paid. I paid $5,000 for the sheet metal. And that was the frame and all the sheet metal, which, like I said, was in really good shape. I sold my 51 Chevy pickup to do the interior, which is the interior is about $5,000. The engine compartment, I sold a 1966 Ford Fairlane original car with factory air that I was the second owner, had that car for 22 years. Wow. So there's $10,000 under the hood. The body and paint, I sold a 1929 Model A 4-door, and there's $22,000 worth of body and paint on that car. And everything else, all the modifications to the chassis and buying all the electronics and things like that, I got 80 in it.
What do you think the value is on the street today in this condition?
I would have to say on a good day, 50,000. Yeah, because it's been on the road for 15 years now, and it still looks pretty darn good.
Well, the story that you've just told on how you sold cars that you've been working on in order to pay for this tells me that there's a lot of love in this car. You have an attachment to this more so than anything else. Tell me what this car means to you. Why did you sell and divest so many other cars to put that money into this car?
Well, this car, it does have some history to it. I bought the body in 1995. Bought the engine in 96. Did a lot of pre-engineering on the car. My wife picked out the color of the interior. It was her 55th birthday present. So it was okay to get rid of the other things as long as we keep this. So like I said, it's been on the road since September of 03.
This has been a fantastic story, a fantastic journey to share with you. I'd like you to kind of pass down some words of wisdom to somebody that wants to restore a car, particularly a restoration of this level. What's your advice to that person?
Don't try to do anything that you really don't know how to do. Most people will have a professional body paint man do their work, and same for the interior. You can take an engine and you can figure out how to get it in there, how to wire, how to put on the serpentine belt system, things like that. And one thing I would do if I had to build this over again, I would buy a rolling chassis. That is a key. We spent a lot of time and money boxing in this frame, and by the time I got done working on the frame, I could have bought a rolling chassis with disc brakes all around and everything. So that's one good piece of advice, and make sure that your spouse or significant other are on board before you start spending money.
I hear that one a lot.
Yeah, you do. I'm sure you do.
To some car owners, restoring a classic car means staying as original and traditional as possible. To others, the sky's the limit. And it's these owners who are building cars that look fantastic and suit their everyday driving needs. These cars are drivers, cars that represent the best of both worlds. And this 1940 Ford Opera Coupe is just that, a marriage between classic traditionalism and modern technology and performance. If you enjoyed this show and don't want to miss the next new episode, then click on the subscribe button in the description below, and I'll send you an email with a link to each new show as it's posted. This is the easiest and best way to hear the stories behind these amazing classic restorations. You can also check out this car and more on our YouTube channel and on our Instagram page, where we post the best of the best from car shows and cruise-ins. Just follow the links to these channels on our website at greatamericancruisein.com. And if you have a car that you want to show off, send us an email with pictures and all the details so that we can show it off on our website. See the footer section of our homepage for more information. I want to thank you for spending your time with me, and I look forward to sharing another amazing classic car restoration story on the Great American Cruise-In.